And welcome back, everybody. Good to be back in town for the Old Gatbox Radio Show and podcast. Great guests continue, all brought to you by Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic. Go to casadecampo.com. The late, great Pete Dye designed 4 absolute gems down there. His favorite, Teeth of the Dog, undergoing a redo. They cut the ribbon in December. I just got back, and I'm telling you, and this is no exaggeration, they roll out the red carpet. The hospitality, the people are awesome. The golf, even without teeth, is pretty good. Go to casadecampo.com. All right, our next guest, Mike Nabors, a longtime friend. Haven't seen him in a while. He and I have been in the same business for a long time. We won't go into specifics. Mike has now segued to this whole new career. He's a professor at Florida Southern University, has his own production company. He's got a lot to talk about. First of all, Mike, it is awesome to see you, my friend. Life must be good for you.
Doug, you don't age. What's going on? You're like Dick Clark. You look the same
Oh,
as
I
you did
age.
30 years ago.
Oh, I age. It's lighting. You know, these ring lights are amazing, Mike. Tell me this now, seriously. And I want to talk about your book, Don't Quit Pivot. You've written a couple of books, and we'll get to the Drew Brees book, but Don't Quit Pivot is available on Amazon. I saw you on Birmingham television with our friend Mike Dubberly, I don't know, a month or so ago when this book came out. It's not just for sports people, Mike. I mean, you're trying to motivate people. I don't want to say take chances, but you're trying for people to find happiness and pursue what is important to them as far as a career, correct?
It's all that. It is. I mean, to find happiness, you have to take chances. I mean, I don't know what happened, Doug. When I turned 30, I didn't care. When I turned 40, whatever. 50 was a turning point for me because I love, like you, being a sportscaster. I'll always have a foot in sportscasting, but I wanted to do more. And I knew I wanted to teach, I wanted to write, and I wanted to speak. So went back and got my master's degree. I was like Rodney Dangerfield back to school. I was the oldest in the class, and
Wow.
I didn't know if it was all worth it, but it's been a really rewarding career. And I really appreciate my background in sportscasting because I can take all the skills from that and use it as a professor. And I think anybody listening to your podcast can do the same thing. I mean, my message in Don't Quit Pivot is really you could be 25 or you could be 90 and all ages in between, and you have a passion, and maybe, you know, at an early age you're not happy with your career, but you have skills, but you're not using them in your job. So you have to fight the fear and take chances, whether it's going back to school, whether it's just changing course, you know, whatever it is, to find that happiness. Because think about it, we spend at least 40 hours, you know, usually more than that a week at work. Why be unhappy? Why are we always counting down to hump day and TGIF and all that stuff? You know, it's never going to be perfect every day, but it's better when you enjoy the craft and the core of it, knowing that there's going to be more good days than bad days.
You know, like, it's interesting, and I've followed your career for years, you know, whether you're working with the New Orleans Saints, and we'll get into that, or the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you've been on national TV, regional TV. You decide this teaching thing, right? And I guess you become an adjunct professor at the beginning because you need a master's degree, and you went and got one at the age of 50. Mike, that is almost unheard of. First of all, was it difficult? And apparently you breezed through it, I guess, right?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was, I had to write a thesis. All master's degrees are not created equal in terms of the expectations, but I had to write a thesis, and that took a lot out of me, frankly. But it was great preparation for writing a book. I knew I wanted to teach, Doug, but I never thought I would write a book. But writing that thesis kind of combined with me doing a show with Drew Brees for 14 years. When he retired, I thought, I have all this content and all this perspective from him that frankly he hasn't shared with other people. I'm going to look back at my life and regret it if I didn't take all this and make a book out of it. And he had to agree to a lot of things legally. And once we hit that milestone, I got Doug Flutie to write the foreword. That's an interesting story in itself. But a lot of Saints teammates, when you write a book, one of the main obstacles is you keep adding to it. At some point, you got to stop and just publish the thing. You got enough. But the thesis was hard, but it was great preparation in writing my 2 books, The Breeze Way and Don't Quit Pivot, because the thesis was harder because you have to reference everything academically. When you write your own book, you have more control of it. It's not an academia project. So it was hard, but it was worth it because it made me better in terms of writing books moving forward.
So, Mike, what do the students call you? Do they call you Professor Neighbors? Or what do you get from these kids?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have a PhD. When they call me Doctor Neighbors, I just don't say anything. I'm going to take that, Doug. If they want to call me Doctor, that's fine. But it's usually Professor Neighbors. It's so great having the experiences that we've had. I mean, I met you when I was making $12,000 a year and market
Mm,
185 in Tuscaloosa. But I'm
wow.
so glad I had that experience because you appreciate it, and frankly, I loved it. I loved just getting my first break, whatever it was. And having those experiences from moving on from where we were, over 30 years ago to now. And if you taught right now, Doug Bell, you would have a million guest speakers with all the people that you know. You'd have all these great stories to complement your lectures. We produced a million sportscasts over the years. I produce my lectures the same way. That's the point of my book. Whatever you do, you could be a police officer, you could be an architect, you could be a lot of things. You have skills you've acquired over the years. You can translate those to pivot into something else. And that's my motivation to write the book. And that's my motivation to teach now, too.
Cool stuff. Very cool. Don't Quit Pivot is the most recent book by Mike Neighbors. The Brees Way was the first. Sat down with the great Drew Brees. And Mike, it's interesting, when I was getting on the show here, and my son works at Fox News up in New York City, and Drew Brees happened to be a guest on the show today, which was really cool, and he had a chance to meet him. I didn't realize that next year he's eligible for the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. Obviously, he's going to go into the first go round, right?
Absolutely. He'll be easy.
Yeah.
It's funny, if there wasn't some guy named Tom Brady, Breeze would own all the records. He'd own all the passing yards records. He'd own all-time touchdown record. There's one record that Breeze still has that I think he's going to keep for a long time. It's most consecutive games with the touchdown pass. Kirk Cousins kind of nipped at his heels there a couple years ago, but it's almost like Joe DiMaggio's equivalent from baseball to being a quarterback. You got to have a little luck. There were a couple games there where you thought he was going to lose it. It ended in Atlanta when he had a couple drives that, it was a running touchdown or it was an incomplete pass. But yeah, I mean, he's a shoo-in. The interesting thing is the reason he came to New Orleans was because San Diego at the time,
I know.
um,
The professor's light went out.
exactly. They drafted a guy named Philip Rivers, who's an Alabama native. So Drew Brees had the shoulder injury, so didn't know where he was going. Well, Philip Rivers is eligible for the Hall of Fame too. So it would be ironic if both of them get in together. We'll see.
Wow, that is awesome. Listen, for our listeners who may have forgotten this, because with the excitement surrounding Coach Saban and his incredible run at Alabama, when he was with the Miami Dolphins, as you know, it
Yeah.
came down, should we sign Drew Brees, who's coming off this crazy shoulder surgery? And they talked to the world-famous orthopedic surgeon Jim Andrews, who's kind of like, I don't know. We've never done this before. Put the staples in the shoulder, and I'm not sure a quarterback can come back from it, or Dante Culpepper, who was coming back from a basic ACL tear. All right, so the Dolphins and Saban, thanks to the advice of the medical staff, they go with Culpepper. The rest is history. Coach Saban comes to Alabama a year later and obviously enjoys what many deem as the greatest career ever in college football coaching. Imagine if Drew had signed with the Dolphins. Surely you've talked to him about that, right?
Yeah, here's my take on that. I mean, how can you argue that Nick Saban's not the best college football coach of all time? It would have changed everything. He probably never would have gone to Alabama. And it changed the trajectory of Sean Payton, too, because Sean Payton probably would have drafted Matt Leinart or Vince Young, or maybe
Wow.
signed a Tony Romo, who he was mentoring in Dallas at the time. But I'll take it a step further. As great as Saban is, I think Drew Brees might not have become a Hall of Famer with Saban. Sean Payton, the magic they had together, Doug, was kind of once in a lifetime stuff. I mean, we've seen New Orleans since they left, and they may be the worst team in the NFL this year. It's hard to predict that stuff. But I think the magic that they had, the chemistry they had, I don't know if he would have had that with Saban, being a defensive-minded coach. Maybe he would have brought in an offensive coordinator that would have brought the best out of Drew. I think Drew would have elevated Saban's NFL career. But I think Sean Payton made Drew Brees a Hall of Fame quarterback for sure.
Wow. I love that perspective. And you know what? I hadn't really thought about that. And it took a guy who was involved and entrenched with the Saints to bring that up. So good job there, Professor Neighbors. Hey, tell me this, though, seriously. And I know you were involved with the team for 14 years, and you did a lot with Drew. You did a show with him. I mean, you know him more than just a football player, and he seems to me, I've interviewed him but never really met him. Just seems like a genuinely great human being. Now he's coaching his kids' high school football team out in San Diego, and he talked about that on Fox today, how much he's enjoying that. Talk a little bit about Drew the man, because you know him. He's not just a guy you interview to put the pads on. You know him personally.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing about covering athletes, and you know this, working the PGA Tour and all the different projects you work for, athletes are more guarded these days because when we started 30 years ago, there was no social media, there weren't camera phones. We got to know athletes better. Drew Brees is in the spotlight so much, he's guarded, and I don't blame him. I'd be guarded if I was Drew Brees, but we had a unique relationship because I talked to him after every game, and we did a lot together over the years. I remember the first time we did our post-game interview, it was on tape, and he walked behind the camera and he's like, and he would wait till I threw back to the studio just to make sure everything was okay. Then he had his first child, and then he had his second and his third, and then finally they had a little girl, so they had 4 kids. No more of these, Doug. It was, I'm on the phone with my wife to check in on the kids. It was all that. He's a great family guy. I remember the night he broke Peyton Manning's record for most passing yards, and it was late. It was a primetime game, and all his boys came with him on the post-game show, and they all sat behind the camera. And you have boys, and many of you who have children know it's hard when they stay up late, and it's hard when they're under the age of 10 to stay still. So they're behind the camera, and right before we go on, they're kind of wrestling, they're pushing each other, and Breeze is like, guys, you got to behave for the interview. And then they just were in great kid mode for a while, and then they came on with us. So I'm going to feel old one day if it's kind of an Arch Manning situation and one of the Breeze boys is playing for Purdue, just thinking about all the experiences we had from him doing this with no kids to him having all the little boys around us to now. A lot of people remember Drew Brees, Doug, when the Saints won their Super Bowl, holding his son.
Yes.
Afterwards, and he had the headphones on. They were kind of ahead of their time with the crowd noise block there. But that kid's in high school now. And that
Crazy.
makes me feel really, really old. So, there's just so many great stories with Drew. I remember we'd always have fun together, just doing little skits. There's a buddy of mine, we both went to Florida, and we ganged up on a guy when the Gators finally beat the Knowles, and I had Drew do a video where he interceded and felt sorry for my Seminole friend and sent him a message on how to bounce back from a loss. He would do great stuff for me over the years. I think the thing that impresses me most about Drew Brees, Doug, though, is the way he handled losses. He would be better in a post-game press conference after a loss, maybe even if he broke the all-time passing record, because he knew that he was a leader, and he knew what he said would resonate throughout the rest of the team when they would hear it. As much as I appreciate Tom Brady, he wasn't always that way. Sometimes he'd leave the field or he'd be quick afterwards, and that's just the way he dealt with it. Everybody's competitive, but Brees was always better after a loss than a win, and to me, that's one of my big takeaways.
That's great stuff. And he just seems so legitimate to me. And I've been in the business a long time, and I know how guys are sometimes when the lights come on, et cetera, et cetera. And he just seemed like a real guy. And I appreciate that. Again, that book, by the way, The Breeze Way, that was the first one that the professor wrote. And then Don't Quit Pivot. I got to call you the professor. Come on.
I like that. Who would have ever thought, Doug Bell, all those years ago?
Yeah, a long time ago. All right, before we let you go, I know you got another class today. A couple of sports questions because I know you're still, dipping your toes into it. Who's the best quarterback in the NFL? We're talking about Drew Brees. Is it Josh Allen? Is it Joe Burrow? Lamar? Who you like? Who's number one in your mind right now in the NFL?
People forget about Patrick Mahomes because all he does is win.
Yes.
I still am not counting him out, but to me, if I'm picking one guy, Mahomes is, to me, he's still real young. Look at Tom Brady playing until he's, in his mid-40s. I think I still go with Mahomes right now. I love Lamar Jackson, and I love Josh Allen, but Patrick Mahomes has proven he can win. And he's proven it with a different ensemble for many, many years. I love all those guys. Joe Burrow, to me, is right up there as well. He's got to score 1,000,000 points because that defense is so horrible in Cincinnati. But I go Mahomes still, just because he's proven that he can get there and he can win it all. And until he shows me he can't lead his team, I'm still going Mahomes. I wouldn't draft him in my fantasy league because his other guys put up better numbers. But I think in terms of winning, and if I'm going to pick a guy, he's the guy.
Your production company, you do a lot of cool stuff, and you're going to do more. And I know you really love that. But these crazy shows on Netflix, the quarterback show, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, they followed him 2 years ago, Burrow this last season. I just watched last night the series on the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, Mike, you got to be impressed by some of these. I mean, and that's kind of where sports is going now. The fan wants to go inside. And when you can go inside, spend time with these people at their homes, with their families, get some intel that you didn't know, man, it's priceless, right? I mean, that's where we're going right now. And that's where you're going with your production company.
Absolutely. We do a lot of work in the private sector with nonprofits and actually some Fortune 500 companies. One thing I'm really proud of with our company, and it goes in line with everything you said. I mean, I watched that whole Cowboys documentary. It's all about access. I mean, they got Emmett, they got Troy, they got Michael Irvin, they got Jerry Jones for I think 40 hours, and they got Jimmy Johnson. You got to get access. And to reference something we talked about earlier, Doug, a lot of times in today's media climate, especially sports media, we can't get one-on-ones like we used to. I started a series called Errands, which is like Carpool Karaoke and Cars, Comedians, and Coffee that Seinfeld did, but we did the sports version where Dick Vitale was the first one we did. We get these personalities in a car, we talk, but they run 3 errands. We get out of the car and run 3 errands. The Saints hired me. We did almost 30 episodes, and I have so many great stories. We did Archie Manning during COVID. We had a mask on. We did Jim Mora. But I think fans like, and athletes actually like this, something that's different. They get asked the same question all the time. It's the same press conference. It's the same, cattle call in front of their locker. You give them a different opportunity to talk about their life and to cut loose a little bit. That was the goal in Errands. I love all this stuff on Netflix, the Cowboys documentary, everything Peyton Manning does, the Manning cast. We want different content. And I think that's the goal of my company, and that's the goal for many.
And the cool thing about it now is we have access to watch whenever we want. Yeah. It's no longer like, I got to be home Thursday night at 7 or I'm going to miss it. Now we can just, we can get home at 11 o'clock at night and flip it on. That's where we are, and that is awesome. Hey, I wanted to ask you this before I let you go, because you've been involved with the Southeastern Conference forever. And we're talking football, and I know you love football. 16 schools currently. Within a couple of years, there's talk that North Carolina and Clemson are definitively going to come to keep that footprint going for the SEC. 18 schools potentially. Are the days of the dynasty, the Alabama, Georgia snuck in there now for a while with Kirby, but I think he's kind of running up against the new modern game. LSU's had their moments. Florida, obviously, with Coach Spurrier and Urban. Are the days of the dynasty over? Because there's going to be too many schools. More schools are now going to get into the playoffs. I mean, Mike, it's a forever changing landscape. I'm not saying it's a bad landscape. I'm going to be watching like you are.
Absolutely.
But the dynasty's over, right?
I really do think so. And as much as I question everything that the NCAA doesn't do, because they're just powerless, it seems now, with just the wild, wild west of NIL and transfer portal, it actually makes it more exciting, because college football, Doug, has turned into the NFL, where that's why the Patriots were so impressive, because they did it in the salary cap era. And I think Nick Saban knew this, that he's a great coach, but now he can't control a lot of things that he used to. He can't, have a nucleus of a team, and when half of them are going to stay and then half of them are going to transfer. I mean, it's just crazy out there. I feel sorry for these coaches, even though they make a ton of money. I think it's very hard. I think as a fan, it's exceptional, though, because we're going to have parity. Think about all the scenarios over the years before the college football playoff. If we would have had a college football playoff, Doug, we missed out on so many great games over the years that we never were able to see, and now we can see them. So, yeah, I know it's a wild west with the college athletics, but I'll take it from a media standpoint covering this, and I know the fans love it too, because the playoffs are great and the parity's great too. It's not great for the coaches, but it's great for all of us.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, Mike, I know you got to go, but tell me this. If I took your class, is it an easy A? I mean, is it one of those I'm going to go in, I know I'm going to get an A if I just turn in the papers on time? I mean, are you an easy professor?
I think it's, you got to be consistent. I try to teach my classes like life. You can't just show up at the end. You got to be consistent. I don't test in any of my classes. I teach marketing, management, media, and innovation class. You write 2 papers a week. You present a ton. Big presentations, midterm final. You're consistent, Doug Bell. It's just like life. No extra credit in my classes. There's no extra credit in the real world. It's like real world. You show up for work every day, you're going to be just fine.
I love it. Can I take your class online?
Let's do it. Let's do it. You're welcome. Yeah, I need you as a guest speaker first, though.
Oh, I'd love it. And before I let you go, and for our listeners and viewers, Mike had Jameis Winston, a young guy who's still in the NFL with the Giants, and I followed him as a high school kid in the Birmingham area. I've known famous Jameis forever. That was a great interview because he was like walking his dog or something, Mike, when he was talking to your class. It was typical Jameis.
Well, two things. We did errands, that errands segue segment that I mentioned earlier. We did an errands around New Orleans with Jameis where he did a community event. We spent a lot of time talking. And it's funny, I asked him, I said, what's the biggest misconception about you? There's so many opinions about you. And this was 3 years ago. And he said, people think I'm goofy. And now he's just embraced it. I'm goofy. I'm all in. And to back to your point, I do these town hall meetings separate from my classes, and usually we'll have a guest in this big auditorium, or they'll join us via Zoom. We had Booger McFarland who joined us via Zoom, and the Zoom is really at home. Well, Jameis joins us walking his dog, like you mentioned, and I'm thinking, I have 150 people behind me. Is the cell service going to last? But he walked his dog around, ends up back on his front porch, answered students' questions. So I think he's embraced the goofy, and he's going to have a heck of a media career when he retires, no doubt.
Yeah, I think the world of the young guy. I really do. And obviously, like quarterbacks, you have ups and downs, and you're with this team and that team. They're not all the superstars, right? Although I will say he's done pretty good in his career. Well, Mike, we appreciate it. Again, Don't Quit Pivot is the new book, and Mike explained that at the beginning. And The Brees Way is the one that he did with the great Drew Brees, who's going to be a Hall of Famer next year when all this comes around. And Mike, I can't thank you enough, my friend. Man, first of all, it's just great to see you. I'm glad you're doing so great.
Great to see you, my friend. I'm glad you're doing well. What's great about life is relationships.
Yes.
And after all these years, I'm glad we still keep in touch. Good luck with the podcast, and I love following your career as well.
I got to get you down to the Dominican Republic and play
I'm
some
there.
golf.
Let me know. I'm ready.
All right, Mike. You take care. Good luck teaching.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
All right, buddy.